All right, y'all, welcome on back to A Fresh Perspective with Jeff Charles with your favorite conservatarian, me, Jeff Charles. Thank you guys so much for listening. I'm going to talk about the whole Herschel Walker fiasco. And, before I go into it, you already know what I'm going to say. If you haven't already, subscribe to this podcast. Hit that subscribe button. Leave me a 5-star rating on whatever podcast app you're using, especially if you're using Apple. And leave me a little bit of a review, just a few sentences to let people know why you love me so much, because I'm so adorable. You guys know it. But anyway, I'm just going to go right into this. And I have a feeling that this controversy isn't over yet. I know it's been, a few days since it happened. And I actually recorded this earlier this week, but then it turns out that the program that I used didn't record the audio. So I wasted about 25 minutes talking to myself for no reason. But that's all right. I made sure that it's recording me now. Damn it. So just for the few people who don't know what happened, maybe people who don't follow this as much, I'll give you a little synopsis. Herschel Walker, who is running for Senate in Georgia, is being bombarded by issues that are coming from his past. And this wasn't hard to see coming because if you know anything about Herschel Walker, he has quite a troubled past. Now, much of it he has talked about publicly already over the years. And he's talked about the changes that he went through. But one of the reasons why a lot of conservatives, myself included, had some misgivings about him being endorsed by Trump and winning the primaries is that we knew that stuff was going to come up, even stuff that we didn't know about yet. And that is precisely what has happened over this past year and a half or so. So, what had happened was the Daily Beast, which is a far-left activist media outlet, they published a report alleging that he paid for an abortion for one of his ex-girlfriends back in 2009. And they claim to have, the receipts that she supposedly kept from from having the procedure and the check that he wrote her and the get well card that he sent her. And it basically, she came forward. She's still anonymous, but apparently it came out later in the week that she's actually the mother of one of his kids that he had previously that he didn't talk about publicly. The Daily Beast reported on that as well. The Daily Beast has a real hard-on for Herschel Walker, and they have from the beginning for some reason. But I can see why he is a threat. I mean, he's basically in a statistical dead heat with Senator Raphael Warnock, even now after this whole scandal broke. So again, they're claiming that he paid to have an abortion, that he urged his ex-girlfriend to have an abortion. Now, he denies this, and he's even threatened legal action. But that's where the accusations stand. Now, he may be telling the truth, he may not be. And I'm going to get to it later where I talk about whether this will affect the election or not. But basically, the Daily Beast is hoping that this will destroy his chances of becoming Georgia's next senator. Now, the woman who came forward said that she did so because she couldn't stand the hypocrisy anymore and that, quote, we all deserve better. Because Herschel Walker has a very strong pro-life stance. And he's been preaching it from the rooftops ever since he was running, and even before that, he is very pro-life. Now, as if this wasn't bad enough, when this report came out last Tuesday, it prompted Herschel Walker's son, Christian Walker, to come out and give us a piece of his mind, so to speak. Now, Christian Walker is a conservative social media influencer. He's a young guy, 22 years old. And as you'll hear me explain and actually hear him explain, because I'm going to play a couple clips, he wasn't really on board with the idea of Herschel Walker running for office, and neither was the rest of his family, because they knew this stuff was going to come up, and they didn't want to get dragged into it, which is what essentially ended up happening. So Christian Walker went on a mini Twitter rant. He posted like 2 or 3 tweets. and talked and basically said what I just said about how people were begging him not to run because they didn't want to be exposed to all this. They didn't want attention from the media. They knew that he had stuff in his past that he hadn't gone public with. And then these revelations start coming up, and it looks like this one from the Daily Beast about the abortion was the straw that broke the camel's back for Christian Walker. He talked about what he and his mother went through when Herschel was going through his issues, the violence, the threats. He talked about how they had to move 6 times and that they were basically living in terror. And, when I'm reading the tweets, I'm seeing pain, obviously. This is a painful childhood, having a father like this, who was also out, cheating, hooking up with other women. And, he was trash, basically. And I have no problem saying that because Herschel Walker said it too. He didn't use the same words, but he's talked about how his shortcomings as a father, as a husband, and even as a person. So you could imagine how this affected his son. Now, I'm not a fan of Christian Walker's. I don't dislike him personally. I don't know him. I'm just not really into, that shtick, all the screaming and yelling and yada, yada, yada. I mean, that's cool for some people, but maybe I'm just, in the words of Danny Glover, maybe I'm just too old for this ish, But, again, he wrote what he wrote. He said that there was a lot of lying going on and that he was tired of it and basically that his father was being dishonest because he didn't talk about this publicly and he made it sound like he was all about that pro-life stuff. And I understand the frustration, but here's the thing. Now, what happened, right? Once he came out like that, right? Yeah, that's right. Right. The right came after him hard. All this outrage was thrown at Christian for going public with his opinions on his dad's past and his decision to run for the Senate. And of course, the usual conspiracy theories came up because we're on the right and we love our conspiracy theories. People are pretending that he's being paid by the Democrats or the media to speak out against his dad. And people were talking about the timing. Oh, the timing is suspect. This is an October surprise. But that doesn't really make much sense considering the fact that it was this story that set him off. Now, I fully believe that the Daily Beast held on to this story until October. They didn't just discover this. I'd be surprised if that were the case. I wouldn't believe them if they said it. They probably had this for a while and they were waiting for the right time to drop it, which was in October. So it makes sense that that's when Christian would get set off. If what he's saying is true and there's been all this lying all along the way, again, straw that broke the camel's back. So people were criticizing him for talking about it publicly. And I understand that criticism because I wouldn't have done that if it were me. Maybe I'm a little bit more old school. He's a different generation where everything is done on social media. But I don't believe that, hashing out your issues on social media is the best way to go. But after he started getting all this vitriol from the right, and of course the left wants to pretend like they're all understanding, oh, we feel so sorry for him, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. He makes a couple of videos defending himself and posts it on Twitter. So I'm going to play that for you right now.
I stayed silent as the atrocities committed against my mom were downplayed. I stayed silent when it came out that my father, Herschel Walker, had all these random kids across the country, none of whom he raised. And my favorite issue to talk about is father absence. Surprise, because it affected me. That's why I talk about it all the time, because it affected me. Family values, people. He has 4 kids, 4 different women, wasn't in the house raising one of them. He was out having sex with other women. Do you care about family values? I was silent lie after lie after lie. The abortion card drops yesterday. It's literally his handwriting in the card. They say they have receipts, whatever. He gets on Twitter. He lies about it. Okay, I'm done. Done. Everything has been a lie. And so for the right to say I'm being suspicious for saying, hey, I'm done with the lies, when you all have been calling me saying, is this true about your dad? Gosh, we're not going to win Georgia, this candidate, that's been you. You have no idea what I've been through in my life. You have no idea what me and my mom have survived. We could have ended this on day 1. We haven't. I haven't told any stories. I'm just saying, don't lie. Don't lie on my mom. Don't lie on me. Don't lie on the lives you've destroyed and act like you're some moral family man. Y'all should care about that, conservatives. And then for people on the left to act as though I'm responsible for all of the things that he has done. I've talked about father absence. I've talked all these issues because they've been close to me. Because they matter to me, because I went through it. That's why I've talked about it. So when you say, well, talk about your dad, but I am. I'm saying this behavior is atrocious. Don't come for me. You don't have to like my apology. You don't have to like me. You don't have to. I'm just saying I'm done with the lies. And just two more things I have to address, and then I'm done with this buffoonery nutjob land. This is atrocious. People on the right are pulling up that I did a campaign event with my dad last year. And they're saying, well, you supported him all last year and all this year. You look suspicious. No. You all have been calling me saying, why aren't you on the campaign trail with your dad? Why aren't you helping him out? This looks weird. You should go help him. And I've said to you calmly, I'm not getting involved. You don't know my family life. I did one event last year when we were told he was going to get ahead of his past and hold himself accountable. None of that happened. Everything's been a lie. So for me to tell you I'm not getting involved, and then you also be flooding my DMs and calling me saying, I didn't know all this about your dad, we're going to lose the Senate race. And then when I simply say, I'm done with the lies, you go, well, Christian looks suspicious. Excuse me? I haven't told one story about what I experienced with him. I'm just simply saying, don't lie. And then for certain political pundits to be pulling up old pictures I posted of my dad, thinking they can police and determine what my relationship with my dad was. If you want to pull stuff up, I'll pull stuff up. Don't try me. Don't test my authenticity. All of this has been a lie and you've known it. You've known. So don't you dare. And then to the left who says,
All right, well, that's enough. There was a little bit more, but I mean, you get the general idea, right? I mean, and again, I mean, it's hard for me to blame him. Again, I wouldn't have done that. But at the same time, if he's gone through all this trauma, which he has, there's absolutely no way that you can deal with what he says that he dealt with as a kid and not be jacked up. Like, obviously, there's still some healing that needs to happen here. But to suggest that this is some type of conspiracy, I'm sorry, I'm not buying it. Show me the money. Show me the evidence. I'm pretty sure that Senator Chuck Schumer didn't drop off a bag full of cash at Christian's house, and I'm sure CNN didn't either. It's obvious what happened here. It's common sense. I mean, he's been going through all this stuff, and he chose to air it out publicly. I don't think there was any money involved in it at all, and there's no evidence of that. And on top of that, too, I was on a panel last week with Angela Stanton King on her channel. Check that out, by the way. It was a lot of fun. But we talked about this issue among others. And you guys probably know who Shamika Michelle is. She's with The Blaze, and she was also part of the hashtag Walk Away movement. And she's a friend of Christian Walker's, and she kind of gave us a little bit of insight. She didn't tell all his business or anything like that. But you know, she said that she's known that there's been issues going on. They've talked about it. I mean, so this isn't a surprise. So to me, it's just absurd. I get criticizing him for going public, but other people aren't. I mean, my friend Adam Coleman, he's also right-leaning. I don't think he calls himself a conservative, but the dude's obviously right-leaning. I mean, come on, he's not liberal. But he was all for it. I mean, he had no problem with it because he puts the blame on Herschel Walker, and I agree with that. You can't mess up your kid and then expect not to have any blowback on it. This is Herschel Walker reaping what he has sown. When I look at these two men, I have way more sympathy for Christian Walker than I do for Herschel Walker because I have no sympathy for Herschel Walker. And you know what? I don't think he would want any. Again, he has been forthcoming about a lot of this stuff. He's been honest about a lot of it. I'm sure there's stuff he's holding back. But again, people attacking Christian Walker for saying what he said and not blaming Herschel Walker, you can tell that they're looking at this through a political lens. Because, I'm just going to say it, you guys know good and hell well that if the parties were reversed, if Herschel Walker were a Democrat, you would all be cheering for Christian Walker and talking about how horrible Herschel is for messing up his son. You know it. And I'm not saying everybody. And now if you're listening to this and you're not that type, then I'm not talking about you. If it doesn't apply, let it fly. But we both know that that's what would be happening. And then the left would be attacking Christian Walker for airing dirty laundry because people are looking at this through a political lens. They're more focused on politics than they are on humanity. I got sympathy for what Christian Walker went through. That wasn't his fault. And if he chose to speak out about it, again, I wouldn't have done it, but that's a small criticism. Most of my criticism goes towards Herschel Walker. Now that I've gotten that part out of the way, here's the question everybody wants to know. Is this going to affect the election? Is this going to affect Herschel Walker's chances of becoming senator? Well, they ran a poll that night that the article dropped, and it showed that Walker was about 3 points behind Warnock, which is basically where he's been over the past few weeks. They're still neck and neck. There was another poll that came out that I don't buy, saying that, Herschel Walker is now 38 points and Warnock's at 50 percentage points. That I don't buy it, because they also put Stacey Kemp. They also put Stacey Abrams only 2 points behind Kemp when he's been leading her by 6, 7, 8 points for the past couple months or so. I mean, come on, there's no way she caught up. She's not doing well. So I don't buy that poll. I'll wait for other polling, but I don't think that this is going to affect him. This doesn't mean he's going to win. This is still anybody's race. But the thing is that all this stuff is baked into the cake when it comes to Herschel Walker. We already know that he was trash when he was younger. We already know it. It's been in the news for years. He is talking about it. He has talked about it publicly. So yeah, there are some new revelations coming out, but it tracks, right? And I hate to even put it this way. Like, that tracks. Okay, he paid for an abortion. Yeah, that tracks with who he used to be. But for leftists who are pretending that this is some example of hypocrisy, some people are just too dense to realize what they're saying. Others know what they're doing. They're being manipulative. But let's say he did. Let's say he did pay for the abortion. And let's say he even admitted it. He came out and said, hey, yeah, I did that, but that's not what I believe anymore. How many women are a part of the pro-life movement who have had abortions previously? See, what happens is sometimes people change their minds. So it is very much possible that he could have paid for an abortion and then later in life changed his mind, not realizing that he shouldn't have done that. Many women have. I mean, I've met women who have had abortions in the past and then they change their minds later. Some of them are traumatized by it. Some, come to the realization later. But this isn't some example of hypocrisy. It would be hypocrisy if you were saying you were pro-life and then paying for abortions at that point. Yes, that's hypocrisy. But when you change your view on something and it's different from what you did in the past, then that's different. I mean, if a guy who used to be strung out on drugs gets clean and then tries to warn kids about taking drugs, should he not do that because he took drugs in the past? No, if anything, that's even more of a reason why he should, because he knows what it's like to go through that. It's common sense, guys. A 10-year-old can figure this stuff out, but I shouldn't even have to say it. It's absolutely ridiculous. But again, this stuff is baked into the cake. Now, if he does lose, a lot of it is going to be because of what is already baked into the cake. If this story had never come out, I still think his baggage would be one of the biggest reasons why he would lose. But he has some other issues too. I mean, let's just be real, guys. He's not very articulate. He doesn't seem to have a very good grasp of the issues. The only reason to vote for him is because you know that he's going to vote the way you want him to vote, which I think a lot of people are still going to do. They will hold their nose and vote for him because, one, I do think that he actually went through a change. I don't think he's the exact same person that he was when he was younger, and I'm going to judge him on who he is now. But also, again, we already know where Warnock stands. Herschel Walker may have paid for one abortion. Warnock is trying to get the federal government to pay for thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dead babies, a disproportionate percentage of them black. So, yeah, this isn't going to hurt Herschel Walker. But again, this is still anybody's race. They're still in a statistical dead heat. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this turns out. And I'll be paying attention to polling coming up this week to see what's going on. But I'll give an update on this if anything crazy happens. But I'll just leave it there for right now. I'll see you on the other side.